We have this time a pretty wordy question introducing a piece of kit that some people won't be familiar with immediately. And that's always a bit of a nervous moment. Where a residual current device, RCD, we are familiar with that, I think, is installed upstream of a residual current monitor, RCM, the RCM should be set to a rated residual operating current no higher than. And then we have some choices. So if you're not familiar with an RCM, this could cause a quickening of the pulse.
Yes, it would be something that's not familiar to most people, and hopefully it's covered on your training sessions that you've been to or watched it on our videos. An RCM is a residual current monitoring device. It's not intended to provide protection against electric shock. It's a device that just signals to the user engineer that the leakage current is getting higher and higher and we need to do something about it before the RCD actually trips. So these are sort of values that, where would we get it to trip,
Okay.
Or it doesn't trip. We don't want it to trip and come in and we've got no power, no systems, no controls. So it's a warning device type thing.
So to start off with then, I'm going to go to ground zero. We don't know what an RCM is. We can remember the term, but that's it. So straight to the index, have a look. Yes, it's there. We can find RCMs. Here we go, residual current monitoring devices there. We've got application 532.3 and we've got 538.4. Now, quick note, where you've got a couple of references to regs in an index, you go rushing off usually, you find the first one, you go rushing off to that. You find that's not the one, it doesn't have the information you need. Then you think, oh, what was the other one? You've got to go back to the index, another 20 seconds finding it again. So in the event of this sort of thing, have a pad, jot down both those reg references immediately, so if the first one isn't right, you can immediately find the second one without coming back to the index.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Quick time saving, yeah. So, okay, we've looked in there, we know where we can go. If we knew what an RCM was, we could possibly have found it in.
We could have found it in. It's a device, so you're going to have to select it and erect it, as in put it into the installation. So keep going back to this. If you're selecting something and going to erect it, it's a part 5 question.
Part 5, yeah.
Part 5. Okay. And we've visited this in some other questions before, but just to remind you, it's part 5, page 124. So common rules, wiring systems, and as we can see down in this side, protection, isolation, switching. These are the devices that we're looking for. Okay. No. In particular, 538, section 538. Now, the next slide I'm going to take to has the answer, but before we go there, you said upstream, downstream?
Yeah, and this term, upstream, downstream, in itself is relatively simple, but it's this business of the order that things appear. Something is upstream of this or downstream of that. A good way around it, to do what you're doing, which is to draw a quick sketch, just so it clears in your mind what comes first, what's the logical sequence here. So there you go, we've got the RCD and the RCM. There's the upstream and there's the downstream. The upstream, think in terms of river, upstream is the source of the river, the origin, and then we go downstream to the sea.
Exactly. I mean, the RCD is at the origin of the circuit, the RCM is protecting a particular item of equipment or part of an installation, and it's monitoring the leakage current or whatever's flowing in there, and we've got to sort of set it at a value to make sure that the RC doesn't trip. And that's the crux of the matter. So
in this case, the RCM is downstream of the RCD, but we could have a question which says the RCD is upstream.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So let's have a look at the requirement then. So in part 5, page 187, there's the information that you need for RCMs. And as I stated earlier, they are not intended to provide protection against electric shock. So there's the requirement there. It's set, recommendation should be set to a current no higher than half of the rated residual operating current.
Okay.
So
when you find that,
it's 50%.
Very simple.
And I've found, obviously, going around the country and delivering hundreds of these courses, people are looking for 50%. Can't find the answer, so this would be a guess. Probably would fall back on the 30, because in one of the other questions that we looked at, there was that for the RCD. But in this particular case, it's 50%, a half.
Nice job. Yeah.
Job done.
We hope you found that useful. I should stress that the questions we're addressing in this series aren't official exam questions taken from any paper, but they're very typical of the sort of thing you find on questions from any of the examining bodies for the 18th edition. If there's a question or a subject that you'd like us to address in these sessions, then please do drop me a line, dave.austin@learninglounge.com, or you can simply enter the question in the comments box below.
And don't forget, there are more questions on our website, learninglounge.com/18. and even more questions when you subscribe to one of our courses.